Oh, Mr. Rough, tough football player. Graziano's the one playing through pain. He's had a back for 3 days. These guys are here. We are ready to roll. Special night in Minnesota last night. Let's take you there. Chicago and Minnesota. Justin Jefferson and company getting ready to go, but it was all about a different wide receiver last night. Those are Chris Carter and Jake Reed.
So cool.
Randy Moss's old teammates in that receiver room, bringing out Randy's jersey. They honored Randy so many different ways last night. Special in every way. Now we go to the first quarter. Bears down 3-0, and Williams crushed.
Oh, yeah. You're going to have to block people if you want this quarterback to get better. Make it to next season. Nice move. Hi-ya.
Vikings take over in great field position, and this is Sam Darnold, and this is Justin Jefferson. And after the touchdown, Jefferson had a message. I can tell you Randy Moss has so much respect for Justin Jefferson. I'm sure he was thrilled to see and hear all that. In fact, he had a very nice tweet last night about all of those remembering him. Now we go to the third quarter. Bears down 13-0, and this is ridiculous. DeAndre Swift takes it in for a touchdown, but there's a flag on the play, Jeff. That's because Doug Kramer Jr. in at fullback did not report as eligible.
Unbelievable. You know what? I honestly can't believe it. I don't even care what the tape says. Offensive line don't make mental errors like that. We do not make mental errors like that.
You do.
Somebody else.
On the other side, this is Jefferson. He had 7 catches, 73 yards. They're knocking on the door. And here's Aaron Jones taking it in. The Vikings go on to win it 30-12. With the win, Minnesota clinches a playoff spot, but don't look now. They may have their sights set on something a little more than that. All this talk about the Eagles and the Lions. Do you know that Minnesota essentially controls its own destiny for the 1 seed in the NFC? We have to put 98% up there because there are still some circumstances that could change based on the 4th and 5th tiebreakers in the NFC. Don't let that confuse you. For the purposes of this discussion, the reality is if the Vikings win out and their schedule is tough, they will be the 1 seed in the NFC. I don't feel like their name has come up in any of these conversations about the best teams in the conference, should it?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, you have a very good running back. You have 2 explosive wide receivers. You have a quarterback who's playing top 5 caliber football, and you got a defense that flat out gets after people. I mean, the Lions had to have a massive drive going down, and Goff had a perfect drive to kick a field goal to beat the Vikings. This is a very good football team who could potentially represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's how good they are.
They were within a couple plays of beating the Lions, and that was a different version of the Lions, a much better version, a much healthier version of the Lions. So, yeah, the way this team is playing, and I think we deserve, or Sam Darnold deserves a lot of credit for the way that he's playing in this situation. But, yeah, the defense is not just a blitz-crazy outfit. Last night they turned it down and still played really well.
Sure did.
Yeah, they might have a left tackle problem with Darisaw out and Cam Robinson getting all those penalties, but everyone's got a flaw, and right now their offense is overcoming it. When you have playmakers like Jefferson and Addison, you can score with those top teams. You can score with Detroit. You can score with Philadelphia. Yeah, I mean, 12-2 is 12-2 Like, I wouldn't mess with the Vikings.
Kansas City would take that Cam Robinson problem. Right now. They'd sign up a month ago.
He was available. Like,
you know what I mean? For real.
So let me show you. Let's put the schedules up there. Let's figure out who is going to wind up being the 1 seed in the NFC. The Lions have the Bears next week and the 49ers, so that's a bye, and then the Niners. And then the big game against Minnesota. The Eagles have the easiest remaining schedule. They got to play the Washington game. We'll see how they do with that. Then
a couple of byes.
Cowboys and Giants. Yeah, they finish with the bye. And then the Vikings, will it come down? The question for the Vikings is, will it come down to that last game at Detroit? Right now, Neek, that palatial estate of yours in our nation's capital, who's the 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Lions for now. I think
Wow.
the way that they've played through the course of the season has been really impressive. And even in this loss, I saw a version of the team that I think is going to continue to fight, probably one of the grittiest teams in the league. And the way that Jared Goff played well last week, or well in a game where they're down by a couple touchdowns, I could see them holding on to win the division. Pulling it all the way through the playoffs is a whole nother conversation. But losing Gibbs is going to hurt, but I think this offense can
Montgomery, yeah, they lost Montgomery. Gibbs will have to pick up the slack.
Here's Gibbs, they're in real trouble.
Here's the painful part of this for me, Jeff. I love these Lions. I don't know that anyone doesn't.
For sure.
You love the coach, you love the grit, you love that they've built it from scratch exactly the right way. But every year in the NFL, a few teams have their seasons just ruined by injury, and I fear that has happened to the Lions. Their defense is unrecognizable. They have no one out there. Is that ultimately going to be unsurmountable for them?
I think so. And honestly, I think the Eagles...
This is just... Look at this.
Yeah, and McNeil this past weekend, Montgomery... Here's the reality in the NFL. Jimmys and Joes do matter. All the scheme you can talk about is great. You can try to figure it out, but you got to have guys who can line up, do those things. And unfortunately, you're not going to beat you're going to play games like this where the other team can go score. You got to, and the Lions can match them, but it forces you. And I played on teams like this. It forces you to do things outside of your comfort. Kicking the onside kick with 12 minutes left. You don't do that because you think you're going to stop the team. And at some point, you start doing things and trying to press the gas pedal when you shouldn't. You make unforced errors. Unfortunately, I think that's what's going to end up happening with the Lions.
Yeah, the onside kick with 12 minutes to go is a message saying, as long as we have the ball, we've got a chance.
That's right.
If the other team has the ball, we're in trouble.
That's right.
And that's where they are right now because of what's happened to their defense. Detroit still has a shot.
Sure.
Because, I mean, they're well coached. They are driven. They are, like, they think this is supposed to be theirs.
Yeah.
They felt like the NFC, like they had it in their hands last year in San Francisco in the NFC Championship game and blew it, and they were determined this year to finish that off. They could still do it. I remember talking to Jason Kelce when he was still playing, when the Eagles were making their Super Bowl run, right after Carson Wentz got hurt. I had their first game full started. And he said, we have had injuries all year. This is the big one. If we can overcome this, then we'll know we have something. The Detroit Lions can do this.
Yeah.
It's just become considerably more difficult because of all their losses. They've come back to the pack, basically.
For sure.
And they were dominating earlier.
And I'll say this, the Montgomery injury, although it's devastating, Gibbs can stand in the middle. He can stand in the gap for this. He is an excellent running back. The issue for them is trading scores back and forth with your defense playing as poorly as they have played, even the past month. I'm just telling you, it's fatiguing. It's fatiguing for an offense because you feel like you can't make any mistake. You can't fumble it. You can't have a tip interception. You can't have a muffed punt. All the pressure for everything just begins to mount because you feel like you have to trade score for score.
Yeah, the injuries. I think the Eagles was a good reference point, but that was one major injury to a quarterback on defense. They had their best defensive tackles gone, their best pass rushers gone, their best corners gone.
Right.
So many places that you have to compensate for. It's scary.
Yeah. Those names that you saw up on the screen a moment ago, those were all defensive players and the kicker.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the reason that we put them up there. Not so much that you would read each individual name, but just to be blown away by the sheer number of them. So we'll see if that is the end of them. As far as the team that they beat last night, the Chicago Bears, they're having one of the really tragic seasons that I can think of in recent memory. And by their standards, that's speaking volumes. Our Troy Aikman last night on the Monday night telecast had this idea of what they might do to try and fix those problems.
There has been discussion about do you give up some picks and see if you can maybe make a deal for a guy like Kyle Shanahan. I would be all in on that because he would develop a quarterback and he's a hell of a head coach.
Okay, so let's be clear.
There has been external discussion.
Right.
It's not like the Bears and the 49ers have had this conversation, just so everybody knows.
Right. The jumping off point of the conversation is who should the Bears go out and try and salvage a situation of their own making. I just want to show you this one moment of Caleb Williams on the bench last night. Now, it happened to be after he took a big hit, so I'm not trying to make it seem like this is
the highlight hit. It was the highlight hit that we just showed.
I'm not trying to make it seem like this is his body language on the sideline. What I'm trying to say is that it is a microcosm of the rookie season that Caleb Williams has had, and the Chicago Bears, who have spent a century destroying quarterbacks, have now found the most talented one they've ever had and have done everything in their power. Remember a few years ago when John Mara said of his own quarterback, Daniel Jones, look, we've done everything possible to screw this guy up? Yeah. John Mara can say, at least we're not that. I mean, what the Bears did this year was they kept a coach they should never have kept. They fired their offensive coordinator who had no clue how to develop a young quarterback. They put in place someone who actually seemed to be getting it. And then after like 3 weeks of that, they fired the coach and elevated that one guy who seemed to have created some chemistry with Caleb Williams, so was headed the right way. And they decided, you know what, you go deal with everything else. We won't worry about the only thing left that matters. They've lost 8 straight games. The quarterback is regressing. I'm not kidding.
It's like at every turn you ask them, what decision could you make to make this work out the least possible way? It's like they're like, yeah, let's take that one. Let's take the risky route.
Well, like Mara said that about Daniel Jones 4 years in.
Right.
Like this is 14 games. Like this is not lost, right? Caleb Williams still has.
But it's not found. I mean, if the opposite of lost is found, it's not found.
Not the rookie year you would have designed for him if you had gotten to pick the way it was going to go. But look, this is the question is, does the negativity add up and have a deleterious effect on his development? That's the question. And if you feel like it is, then you have a problem. So that's why their coach hire is so significant. And that's why, I mean, look, what Troy's talking about, again, it's an external thing, like it's been brought up by people who are just sort of imagining possible ideas. It's not a terrible one, like the idea of like going and getting creative and trying to find head coaches on a market where most people just sort of hire coordinators and hope they can be that.
Get Kyle Shanahan, sure. Dig up Vince Lombardi.
Sure.
It's almost just as likely.
Why not?
Yeah, get whatever coach you can get. But I think the most important thing is not to fall into the trap of thinking that you need to hire a head coach for your quarterback.
Right.
You need to hire a head coach that can coach the entire team. Some of the best coaches in football right now, some of the most developed quarterbacks are in situations where the head coach is not necessarily an offensive-minded guy. Even I think about Herbert and Harbaugh. We see the best version of them right now. Even though Harbaugh was a quarterback, they are not focused around building this offense around the quarterback. They're focused around building a team that's based around offensive line and fundamental football things. I think the same thing should be considered when they go to this Bears. Don't go hire somebody because you think like Ben Johnson. Now, I'm not saying don't hire Ben Johnson. If you feel that Ben Johnson is the type of person to lead your organization, hire him for that. Don't hire him for his playbook. You catch up to that real quickly. That's not enough.
100%. And I think people need to understand, like even in the places where there are offensive-minded head coaches that are successful, Sean McVay is not a good coach with the Rams because of the way he designs and calls plays. He's been successful because he immediately commanded that building. His vision and his philosophy and his voice are the dominant ones in that building, and people buy in. He has the ability to do that. Kevin O'Connell doing very similar things in Minnesota. So that's what you're looking for. But it's just not easy to find.
Buy-in. It's creating buy-in and all that stuff about culture that we always talk about that no one truly understands. That's the stuff that you need to create, and it's not about.
What's the most important hire they should make?
Offensive line coach.